Hi Greg, longtime viewer here and a fan of the Fix or Flop series. Never thought I'd be one of your subjects as I am pretty decent with PC hardware tweaking. This afternoon, December 7th, my PC hard crashed while playing Modern Warfare 3 and doesn't want to boot ever since. Whenever I press the power button, all the lights and fans turn on for about half a second and shut off immediately. My PC used to hard crash randomly about twice a day, but it was not a deal breaker. I mainly played COD using a controller. I tried swapping RAMs and in different slots, clear the CMOS, repaste the CPU, nada. And I don't think it's the power supply as it provides power. My PC was a pre-built that I upgraded over time. Hope you'll be able to find what's wrong with my rig. Thank you in advance. Until then, have a great night. This here is that viewer's broken gaming PC. Oh boy, does this one sound complicated. Random reboots and powering off abruptly, especially after only a few seconds of being powered on, that's stuff you never want anywhere near your gaming rig. And well, it could be caused by a number of things. So in this video, we're going to dive into the issues, hopefully fix whatever is causing this random power off situation, and have the viewer back up and running again in no time. It might not end that way, but we're gonna try our best. And you're gonna come along for the ride, hopefully. Stay with me. If you're sick of seeing that same Activate Windows watermark over and over, head on over to VIP SCD Key, where they have Windows 10 and 11 Pro OEM keys at a fraction of the price of retail. Just use a secure payment method like PayPal, enter your product key into your PC settings window, and say bye-bye to the watermark. And be sure to use our offer code SKGS for that sweet discount. Hey there, and welcome to Fix or Flop. If you're new, just know that everything you see us do in these videos is free of charge to the owners in question. We don't charge for labor, we don't charge for replacement hardware, and it's because of your viewership that we're allowed to continue doing what we're doing in the Orlando, Florida area. I can monetize these videos on sites like YouTube, and so they're gracious enough to allow us to film with their builds, albeit broken at the time. I'm gonna give it my best shot. I'm gonna show you pretty much everything that I do to try to bring these rigs back to life. Hopefully you learn something along the way, or at the very least, you're somewhat entertained. Now you likely saw in the earlier screenshot the specifications of this rig, a Ryzen 7 3700X with the stock cooler, an RTX 3070. This is actually an upgrade from the original 3060 that was in here, according to the owner. This is a Skytech gaming PC, by the way. It has 32 gigs of DDR4, a 500 gig M.2, and a 550 watt GAMDIAS power supply. If you can't already tell, it is quite cramped in here. In particular, the graphics card is pressed very closely to the power supply. I am actually a huge fan of MATX builds. I love their use of space and their lack of empty space in most cases. However, the graphics card is a bit close here. There's not much we can do without swapping cases or swapping cards, which of course I don't really want to do unless I have to, but I did want to point that out. I also don't think this is the reason why the system is randomly shutting down. Even if one or two of these fans is partially covered, it shouldn't be a reason for the graphics card to severely overheat. There is some air getting to this card. Now I say we go ahead and just jump straight into powering this thing on. We need to replicate the issue described, which is random powering off, which is why I don't have a screen here. I don't think we're gonna need one to see what we expect to see. Power strip is on. Are we getting LEDs at the front? Nothing yet. Let's go ahead and attempt to power on. There we go. So far, so good. Everything sounds healthy. All the fans are spinning, including those in the graphics card, which is a good sign. I know I've said this in earlier Fix or Flop episodes, but I do want to point out that there are some instances where builds like these make their way into the office and work perfectly fine out of the gate. We end up not even making videos around them. In fact, it's possible you might not even see what I'm recording right now because the rig ends up running just fine, and it's some external factor preventing the system from functioning properly, say a faulty power strip or just dirty power from the wall. You never really know. So far, this seems fine. Several minutes later, and it's a good thing. The system isn't having problems right now, but it also means that we can't actually diagnose the situation. I have no doubt that this system does have some sort of powering off issue. In fact, I asked the owner for a few videos that he captured prior to dropping his rig off, and you can see very clearly after only a few seconds in most cases, heck, sometimes after only a split second, the system immediately shuts back off again. So my job for the last 15 minutes or so has been trying to get this thing to do that. It doesn't want to do it in the idle state that it's in, so I've asked for the owner's login password for Windows. We're going to download a couple of burn-in tests and see if we can trigger any shutdown that way. I should note, burn-in tests are really only good for telling us whether the issue is thermal. If we still don't get a reaction from the rig, then I would probably err on the side of it being a power supply issue. Although in most burn-in tests, you're actually pushing whatever component's being stressed to its power limit as well. We'll have to just kind of prod around until something pops up. So we are in for a mark now. We haven't started the stress test, but for some reason, power draw on the card is around 20 to 25%. This might have to do with the live wallpaper, just another reason why I don't like using those. The GPU itself is around 47 degrees Celsius, which isn't alarmingly high, but if this was truly idle, I would say this is a bit concerning. So far, so good. Temps haven't immediately shot up to a dangerous level, which is a good thing. They are slowly climbing, but I expect they'll level out within the next few minutes, considering this is an air-cooled card. Right now, we're at about 65 degrees Celsius.
A few moments later.
I'm an impatient guy, so I'm not gonna wait much longer. You can see temps have largely leveled off. I mean, 70 degrees Celsius, there's nothing wrong here, and they're certainly not gonna jump to 90 degrees or higher within the next 5 or 10 minutes. It's just not gonna happen with this air-cooled stuff. So we are going to shift our attention to the CPU now, because I think the graphics card is fine. Despite it being as close as it is to the power supply over one fan, this is nowhere near as alarming as I thought it would be. Now in IDA64, things are a bit more concerning. I just enabled the GPU stress test. That's this lower blue line, but the two upper ones, both at 8788, this is CPU and CPU diode. This is uncomfortable for, I believe this is Zen 2 architecture, right? We're at 95 degrees Celsius now at the CPU diode, so we are on the edge of T-junction. At 95 degrees is the maximum temperature allowed for Zen 2. So I expect we'll see some sort of warning down here at the bottom telling us that the CPU is being throttled because it's running too hot. This could very well be why the system is shutting down randomly, especially after several hours of gaming. Oddly enough though, 10 minutes later, we are still running this test. We're still pegged at 95-96C, and the rig has not thermal throttled yet, and it obviously hasn't shut down either. It's like I'm trying to bait it into doing what we've seen it do in the videos that the owner sent, but it just doesn't wanna. For whatever reason, it seems to be running healthily right now. Again, apart from the temperature, it's doing what it's supposed to do here. We even set up a worst case scenario. Left side panel installed, the front panel is still on, practically choking these front intake fans, and we still can't get the system to falter. But here's the thing, we know the system can falter because we've seen these clips from the owner with our own eyes. This PC clearly has issues staying powered on. The issue is I can't account for every possible variable involved. Maybe he's dirty power coming from his wall, in which case there's no way I could account for that without being physically present in his home. Or maybe if he's connected to a surge protector, that protector is going bad. Again, I don't have that either, and I really should start asking for that in the future because that very well could explain some of the things we're seeing here. What I can say though, is that the temperatures we saw were not healthy, and I still want to fix that. Now, your average PC repair shop might say, well, the system runs fine. Yes, it runs hot, but we're not being paid to fix hot. We're being paid to fix no power on or powering on and then right back off again. And I understand that from a business perspective, you don't want to just randomly start swapping things out, especially if you don't plan to charge the owner. In this case, though, we're doing it more for educational purposes. And again, I do want the owner to have a healthy, enjoyable gaming experience. And right now, those temperatures at the CPU level are just a bit too hot for me. So here's the game plan. Firstly, I want to examine the CPU cooler. I want to make sure that there's enough mounting pressure atop the IHS and that it's mounted properly. And then I want to check for the thermal paste underneath, make sure that enough is applied and that it's spread appropriately. Then I want to swap that CPU cooler out with something a bit beefier. The only issue with this is that we might run into height constraints because this isn't a very wide case left to right. So if we put a larger tower cooler in here, it might not fit, at which point we'd also need to upgrade the case. I'm not inclined to do that, even though I think the case could use a bit of revamping, especially from an airflow perspective. I think simply upgrading the CPU cooler alone should solve a lot of his overheating issues. I don't think it's a power supply issue. We would have seen definitely some issues while running both of these heavy components under load. And I don't think it's an issue with anything else because, well, again, it was stable. It was running Windows, no problem, and it was running multiple stress tests, no problem. And the only apparent issue to me is temperature, and that's why I'm only gonna tackle the CPU cooler in this case. So this is what we'll be upgrading him to, a PureRock 2 FX from Be Quiet. This is a larger tower cooler than what he's already got in his system. It does have some RGB functionality as well, and it has a fairly high TDP. Where is that written? Right here, at 150 watts. So it's a high performer, yes, for the price, but it's also a really good looking cooler. Be Quiet, I think, makes some of the sexiest air coolers around. If you're interested, we're gonna have this link below. Again, I wanna thank Be Quiet for being the continued product sponsor of the Fix or Flop playlist. I not only love their products, but I also love how organically they integrate and help out a lot of folks in the Orlando, Florida area. So show them some love down below. Let's start first by removing the original cooler. And you know, I just realized I haven't actually looked through this build yet. But there are some, wow, that's embarrassing. Okay, I'll just show you guys. I've got the ISO turned way up, and the reason why I say this is embarrassing is because, well, this is something I should have caught. I'm not saying that the owner should be embarrassed in the slightest. I've done this before. But this 24 pin is not completely installed. In fact, I think I could just slide out this upper 4 pin. Yeah, look at that. It's not even fastened to the connector on the board. That's not good. That could very well be causing your power issue. Honestly, it doesn't even look like this is clipped in. It's not even clipped in all the way. So you should hear a resounding click, and this top part here should be down if it's properly pushed. There we go. So now, no matter what I do to it, if I pull on it, you know, reasonable, I'm not like yanking it out, but if I give it a reasonable amount of force in the opposite direction, it's not going anywhere. Whereas before it was. Loose connections will cause power issues. I guess I was just so focused on getting the system to actually show a symptom that I forgot to check basic wiring and things that I would normally do in a fix or flop video. So I apologize for that cringe. That said, it didn't power off even as is. And so I can't confirm obviously that this will fix the power issues, but it's definitely something that needed to be tackled. The CPU temperature issue, though, is another one, and we're still going to replace the cooler. Let's get this original cooler off again, these darn hooks. I'd say that's pretty good thermal paste coverage, maybe a little more than you really needed. And if we take a peek at the CPU cooler, we can see thermal paste spread quite nicely here, so it looks like we had adequate mounting pressure. In fact, there was much more thermal paste applied than there needed to be because a lot of it actually rolled into the pins here at the back, which could also, in theory, cause some issues. Again, I cannot confirm any of this, but we're just gonna try to tackle as many small issues as possible. I've got a little nylon bristle brush here. I'm just trying to get as much of this paste out from in between these pins as possible. There's also plenty of crap around the sides of the CPU as well. A lot of crusty thermal paste. We're gonna make this thing look as close to brand new as possible. Just one more quick pass, and here we are. This 3700X looks really good now. IHS totally clean. Also cleaned up a lot of the gunk between the pins underneath this chip. So let's get it installed. By the way, socket looks fine. No issues in here. Chip's gonna sit something like this. It's a bit weird doing the standing up, but for the sake of YouTube, we're gonna roll with it. Just notice this as well, an incorrectly installed NVMe. I really hope this was the owner of the system, maybe as an upgrade down the line, and not Skytech Gaming. You might even notice in this drive's case, it is sort of warped closer to the front right here. It's leaning downward, and it's more straight here at the rear. So just another reason why you don't want to install it this way. One of these should be in either your motherboard's box or your drive's box. So use this to tighten the drive on top of the standoff. So it'll be just like that. Mounting gear is in. We've got pre-applied thermal paste. Remember, we'll set the cooler like this right here. And then we've got 2 more screws to tighten it all down. By the way, cooler clearance with the case is just about perfect. Maybe a few millimeters to spare. Cooler fan now attached, and unfortunately we don't have an ARGB header to connect this fan to, so it won't be able to illuminate as is without an adapter. Not a big deal though. Our biggest concern, of course, was temperature. We'll get his RAM reinstalled, and we're gonna try to clean up cable management a bit, at least on this side. You know, he's got like hanging RGB strips and things. It kind of looks a bit tacky, so we're gonna try to clean this up for him. He's missing a couple of screws back here. We'll fix that for him as well. And here we are, looking much better in my opinion. We cleaned up a lot of the cable management, hid especially those RGB LED strips that were running along the sides, looking a bit messy, and that new cooler. My oh my, looking super juicy. It is my hope that without changing anything in the BIOS, this cooler alone will bring CPU temperatures down quite a bit. We'll of course be fair with the testing. We'll put the left side panel back on and run IDA 64 again. But of course, chicken before the egg, we need to make sure the thing actually turns on before we can test any of that. I think we've got it all rewired correctly. It is blinking obnoxiously green. I'm not sure why. I think that is just a motherboard settings. There's not much I can do on my side without logging in and tweaking a bunch of stuff, which I really don't want to do. I'll mention it to him though. I noticed he had the LED strips wired backwards in the header. So when I move things around, I flip that connector around so that it gets proper 12-volt power now. And so obviously it works, it's just blinking a weird green color. for some reason. Hey, there we go. And now let's log in and run IDA64. You'll probably notice temperatures don't shoot up nearly as high as they did previously, which is a good sign. Although, given we're about 15 minutes at this point into the test, and I think we've more or less fully saturated the air cooler in question, we are still in the upper 80s. That's still a several degrees Celsius drop, which is a notable improvement. However, this is still uncomfortably hot, I would say, especially for Ryzen. It's possible this chip is just poorly binned, and of course the case is not helping things either. One of the first things that comes to mind to remedy this is undervolting. AMD chips usually leave a bit on the table when it comes to voltage, so tinkering that V-core in the BIOS could, in theory, lower temperatures across the board. It doesn't work for every chip. Again, an especially poorly binned chip won't give up much in the way of voltage, but it is probably worth trying. The other thing we could do is disable PBO. Of course, that will hurt performance just a bit. If you're mostly gaming, it shouldn't be that noticeable. Just kind of weighing some options here. That said, at least for me, comparing and contrasting the two coolers, I am much happier with the Piroc 2 FX. It is doing a phenomenal job given its size. It's not a super bulky CPU tower cooler by any means. But you can see it's lower temperatures by about 5 to 6 degrees Celsius under full load, which is welcome. And if in the future the owner wants to upgrade his case to something much more airflow oriented, we should expect to see another healthy temperature drop. I'm sure a few of you are screaming, Greg, why not just replace the case as well? You've done half the work, give them an airflowy chassis. You've got tons of those, right? They practically grow on trees where you live, and then you'll solve the temperature problem completely. Lower CPU temperatures, lower graphics card temperatures, that's a done deal. There are two issues with that. Firstly, no, I don't have trees that grow PC cases, or any computer hardware for that matter. And two, we aren't even sure if temperatures are the reason why the system was shutting off in these clips. We can't account for anything attached to this system here, and that more or less ties my hands. If this was power related, we certainly would have seen an issue with the power supply, intermittent cutouts, or maybe blue screens, or the system outright shutting off. None of that happened, and I let the stress test run for, again, well north of 30 minutes. And look, I'll be honest, I love that you guys love Fix or Flop. I love that you keep coming back episode after episode and are just willing to watch. You don't have to donate, you don't have to join Patreon or any of that crap. You could just watch the videos and leave some comments every now and then. That's really the most I could ever ask for. But I'm never gonna stop being honest with you in this playlist either. And I know that sometimes that honesty will bite me in the butt. I know that it's gonna rub some folks the wrong way, but I always wanna be upfront about my intentions with rigs like these, especially ones that maybe kind of sort of don't belong, because the issue described isn't what matches up here. It doesn't happen often, which is a good thing, but in these cases I can really only justify giving so much hardware away. I think there are systems out there that have much bigger problems that I'd rather use that spare hardware for. You know, I think the owner has the best mentality here. I just got off the phone with him, and the first thing he said was that he was happy it wasn't something hardware related, or at least immediately noticeable from a hardware perspective. I mean, we couldn't, again, get the issue to show up here, but that likely means it's something else on his end, something pretty cheap, more than likely, like a you know, a bad wall outlet, or maybe a bad surge protector, maybe a bad power cable running from the PC to that outlet or surge protector. So who really knows? But the good thing is the system itself seems healthy, apart from that immediate temperature issue that we wanted to address at least partially here. When I do meet him in person, I'm gonna let him know that the very next thing I would do is upgrade the case if possible. This is an MATX platform, so if he looks for an MATX upgrade, there are plenty of really high airflow MATX cases on the market, sub $100, that he could look into. I'll be sure to recommend a few of those if he's interested in hearing them. But yeah, overall, I'm sorry that this wasn't like a super in-depth, you know, study of a broken system. We just couldn't get it to break. And while that might not make for the most enjoyable video, I think it's the best case scenario for the owner. With that, if you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. That would be greatly appreciated. Let me know in the comment section below what you would have done differently, especially if you were like a brick and mortar and maybe you were charging for labor and the troubleshooting process. What would you have done? I mean, in this situation here where you don't really have the ability to replicate the issue described, I mean, we saw the temperature problem, and that was something I wanted to address, but beyond that, I can't fix what I can't see. I think that's the overarching theme of this video. I cannot fix what I cannot see. That's why these issues have to be easily repeatable, because if not, I'm just shooting in the dark, and I'm not even shooting real bullets, I'm shooting blanks, because half the stuff I do might not even impact the stability of the system, because I don't know what's actually unstable about it. Oh, this is a weird. It's frustrating. Not from, you know, I'm not frustrated at the owner. Of course, I don't blame him. If I had seen what he was showing us in these clips, I definitely would have submitted my rig as well. It's just frustrating that I can't actually see the real problem, and because I can't, there's really not much I can do. I don't know. Maybe it comes back in the future with a more repeatable issue, and we can address it then. But for now, everything looks to be healthy, apart from, again, those CPU temperatures. Be sure to subscribe, by the way, if you haven't already. I haven't mentioned that. And again, if you have a broken system that you want a chance to have fixed for free in this series, be sure to click the form linked below. My name is Greg. Thanks for learning with me.